the street, and this is one of our very largest packings ever. We're packing bags of hope, which are food backpacks for kids that would otherwise go hungry on weekends. 1 in 4 Arizona children struggles with food insecurity. That's 25% of our population. Upwards of 500,000 kids aren't sure where their next meal is going to come from. He looked down at his dinner plate and let tears roll down his face. Really, he cried at our dinner table. And he said, I watched her walk right up to a big black trash can, reach in. He said she pulled out a piece of pizza, and I can see some faces, some mom faces. That was probably what mine looked like that night. I thought, how could this be happening in my city and I don't know it? That night, my husband said, all right, we have a hunger problem in our city. I think we should start a nonprofit to help these kids. I think we should call a kitchen on the street, and I think we should do it tonight. Our first year, we partnered with one school, and now we serve 2,000 kids, so we pack about 6,000 bags a month. It's incredible. We moved from our kitchen table to our backyard, to a schoolroom, then to a warehouse. We're making a huge difference academically in the classroom, and I have to believe that just by a healthier life and better education, then they're going to be a success outside the classroom too. During the course of our 5-year partnership with Dugan Live Well, that's equated to 210,000 meals for hungry kids, and make it possible for thousands of children to know they're going to eat this weekend. And to them, that truly turns hunger into hope.
Hello and welcome everyone. Glad to be a part of this virtual conference. Thanks to Social Work Helper for putting this together. It's a really exciting opportunity to celebrate World Social Work Day with a virtual conference. To me, nothing says global than something virtual and using technology. I myself am really into social media, and certainly makes the world smaller. And this is a great attempt by by Social Work Helper to make the world smaller for us today. So, in that vein, my name is Sean Erriger. I'm a licensed clinical social worker up in New York State. Upstate New York. I also blog and use social media, do trainings around professional use of social media for social workers and other professions. Also create some content too and write my own blog, which is called Stuck on Social Work. Because this is a social media training, if at any time you think my slide is wonderful, you think I had a great quote, take a screen, if the slide is good, take a screenshot, tag it at Stuck on Social Work on Twitter or Instagram, and also use I don't know if there is a conference hashtag here, but hopefully there is. All right. So what we're going to talk about is social media, because this virtual conference, the theme was on youth, and I'm always happy to talk about social media in any aspect, but this is especially timely. I think this is something clinically we're struggling with as a profession, to try to understand what impact social media is having on youth. And its interaction with depression and also suicide risk, and looking at the risk and protective factors of social media. That's how I kind of view it definitely from the social work perspective, is to how can we look at it as not only as a risk factor, because certainly there's a lot in the news and in the media about social media being a risk factor, but how can it be a protective factor as well? So the objectives of this training will be the presentation will be to think about, does social media increase depression and suicide risk? We'll look at kind of what the research says, but also carefully looking at causation versus correlation. Always a slippery slope with research. to make assertions about, kind of this causes that, social media causing depression. So I'll kind of look at what the research says. I gave some. There's a lot of research. I tried to distill it to a few examples, and there's certainly plenty more places. And then segueing kind of from research to practice. So what is it? How, given what the research says, how should we as social workers engage with youth and families around social media mood, social media safety? And also, I could just conclude briefly with where to find fellow social workers and other professionals interested in depression, suicide prevention, and technology. So I'll start with last spring. This story made some news, or I can't remember exactly when it was, but it's thinking about Instagram for young adults. A study came out and said that Instagram was the most harmful form of social media for young adults in terms of self-image and things like that. So this story kind of got picked up by a lot of folks, and there was a lot of discussion around it. And what the research said is that young adults who use Instagram frequently compare themselves. They compare their body image, their body image, and this increases their anxiety. The number of likes that one achieves or does not has an impact and creates a feedback loop. So to break that down again, to think about body image and comparing yourself to others, and also that it increases anxiety. So this again was the important finding of this research, was that it was predicated on the number of likes that one achieves or doesn't achieve as an impact. So if you're looking for likes, that the likes on Instagram made people feel good about themselves. But also they looked at kind of comparing other posts though too, and the posts that if you ended up with a lot of likes in one post, then it's almost like you expected to get the same amount of likes in the next one, and if you didn't, then that was kind of disappointing. And then a lot of people comparing themselves to their peers, same age peers, in terms of the number of likes that they got on images, especially themselves. So this led to this question of, but does this mean social media causes mental health problems? Meaning, is this feedback loop that's created, is it necessarily a bad thing? And is it harmful? Does it increase suicide risk? Does it increase isolation if you're constantly viewing yourself as not having enough likes? What kind of impact does that have on your mental health? And in what ways does social media impact mental health? So going to the just to prime the discussion a little bit, to think about correlation versus causation. So when you think about research that what's the famous example is if sales of popsicles and drownings in the summertime. So obviously the popsicles don't cause the drownings. It's different. So to think about that in terms of this research is really important. And to, again, just to get that mindset, because there's a lot of assertions about social media causing depression, causing negative self-image. And I'm personally, if you can't tell, I'm a little skeptical of that. I think it's important because, again, I'll review some of the research too that kind of teases this out. And I think it is important. I'm not saying it doesn't have an impact, but we got to kind of think about, okay, let's think critically about this though, because that's what we do as social workers, is we look at the evidence in front of us and try to figure out what we can do next. So I kind of broke this down into the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of the research that I looked at. So I looked at some of the assertions that social media was bad. So recreational use of social media is associated with poor mental health and outcomes in adolescence. We find that Facebook usage increases user engagement and social comparison, and consequently decreases their happiness. Social comparison mediates the effect of Facebook on happiness, but only for the younger half of our sample, and only those who believe that others may have many more positive experiences than they do. So this one was, I wasn't quite sure where to put this. This was often one of the ones that cited as saying that social media is bad, but it apparently only affected the younger half of the sample, which I think was I think what they did was 16 to 24 in this sample. So yeah, so and also it was demonstrated that taking a break from Facebook had positive effects on the two dimensions of well-being, life satisfaction increases, and our emotions becoming more positive. So they asked young adults to take a break from Facebook for a while, and they reported better outcomes, which, again, take it what you will, but it's definitely important to note that it did increase well-being in some way. And just kind of going on, this is one actually that's one of the recently wrote that is cited very frequently as research of Dr. Twenge. I'm butchering her name probably, but adolescents who spent more time on new media, including social media and electronic devices such as smartphones, were more likely to report mental health issues in adolescents, and adolescents who spent more time on non-screen activities were less likely. So again, kind of thinking causation here. There could be many factors. It could be the electronic devices, which, again, we need to kind of think about. Okay, well, what does that mean? Time spent. What's happening during that time? I think it's great that we can kind of say, okay, time spent sitting in front of your computer has a negative outcome, but what does it mean exactly for mental health? And also, this is another one that's cited pretty frequently in the research that I looked at, is compared with those in the lowest quartile individuals and the highest quartiles of social media site visits per week, and those with higher global frequency score had a significant increased odds of depression. All associations between independent variables and depression had strong linear dose-response trends. Results were robust to all sensitivity analysis. So what they're saying is that they controlled for a lot of factors in this particular study, and even when they controlled for a lot of factors, the people that spent most time per week on social media had increased odds of depression. So the good, I tried really hard actually to find really research that said that actually there's some positive things about social media. And again, I have my bias because I think that it does bring connectivity to people. I think there's something to be said for lessening isolation, but also I'm looking at it from the adult lens. So and again, thinking about what social media means for youth is different than what social media means for me. But so this one's kind of in between, but girls endorse some appearance concerns and social comparison, particularly with peers. However, they displayed high media literacy, appreciation of differences, and confidence strategies appeared helpful in mitigating the potential negative association between social media exposure and body image. So what they looked at is um, that if you gave them the information about media literacy, and if you gave them the information about differences in people, and kind of talked a little bit about their confidence. But I think the most important thing is that the high media literacy bit of this, and we'll get to that in a moment too, when we kind of segue kind of what this means for practice. And this other study demonstrated that youth were more comfortable sharing feelings of grief on social media rather than face to face. So this was a relatively small sample size. I want to say like 70 something youth that had experienced a loss and talked about where they talked with people about it, and they felt that with a negative emotion, it was good to let it out via text or with friends on social media. And again, we'll get to discuss the practice of this too. But I think that tells you something about kind of where we need to go with practice. That we don't necessarily need to think about social media bad especially when somebody's grieving. We can certainly look at it as a protective factor. Okay, the ugly. This was kind of the in-between stuff. This one I thought was interesting, and I'll give you a moment to read it and then just kind of see if what your thoughts are. Those who use 7 to 11 social media platforms had higher levels of anxiety than those with 0 to 2 platforms. So kind of thinking about that, that statistic, number one, I wanted to know what's happening with people that are using 3 to 7 social media platforms. 7 to 11 seems like a lot, but again, I'm looking at it like an adult. I actually use 5 or 6, but on occasion, solidly 4. So to kind of think about, okay, there's that gap, but then also that operational definition of higher levels of anxiety. Kind of what did that mean? What did that look like? And the benefits of using online technology were reported as increased self-esteem, perceived social support, increased social capital, safe identity experimentation, and increased opportunity for self-disclosure. So harmful effects were reported as increased exposure to harm, social isolation, depression, and cyberbullying. So these were a little bit more open-ended. This study, and I believe that this was a nice sample size though too, as I recall. But again, kind of the kind of in between to suggest that there's certain good things about social media, self-esteem, social support, and things of that nature that youth found really helpful. So let's ask the internet. Social media is. So this is always an interesting exercise. As another, I wrote a blog post about this that somebody did social work is, and the results were pretty interesting, as you might imagine. But this is sometimes a good exercise to do when you're trying to get an opinion about something. Ask Google. And let's see here. Social media is bad. Social media is toxic. Social media is good. Social media isolation. Social media is destroying society. Social media is not real life. So again, mostly an erring towards the negative. So there's a lot of negative perceptions about social media. And again, this is what people search. This is what Google's algorithm kind of picks up the most when people are describing social media. Okay, so implications for practice. So this is to try to bridge that gap between the research and the practice, and kind of some of just the common sense everyday stuff that I see. I failed to mention I'm a care manager for youth. So I work with a lot of teens, preteens. So most of this is just kind of like the implications for practice, and practice advice is stuff that I've looked up and just based on conversations that I've had for my own practice. And I hope it resonates with other folks. But transitioning from research to practice, the study concluded that when they asked youth, when they see something wrong on social media or see something troubling, what do they do? And many describe feeling personally responsible for engaging with a person who posted something concerning, like suicidal content or feelings of depression, but felt ill-equipped to offer help effectively. Youth recognized that they needed tools and training to help with these situations, and reference the importance of trusted adults. So if you can't tell already, this is kind of I guess the thesis for my presentation is to, we really can't assume that social media is bad unless we empower youth with information about what's good about it and what's bad about it, and also empower parents to talk about what's good about it and what's bad about it. I kind of look at it, and I'll get into it in a little bit too, is that I feel like it's kind of like a harm reduction kind of stance, but also a kind of motivational interviewing kind of stance that I take too. So what I've observed in working with youth is that, again, you gotta give youth and families the tools they need to navigate the complexity of social media. So to focus more on, with youth, to focus more on choices and giving options, and to focus with families on more education, asking questions. A lot of the parents that I talk with don't really, some of them actually know more than I do. Some of them are pretty up on things, but a lot of parents don't know. Or they know, but they don't really, know where to go. And carefully think about, again, social media being bad, but also being aware of the risks. So again, to think about it from the social work perspective, to think about the risks versus the protective factors when talking with youth about social media. So here's some things that I've read and that I find helpful. Having an open conversation about the risks and benefits of social media. So just talk about it, and again, kind of this is that motivational interviewing kind of stance of when kids are truant from school, very rarely do we ask, well, what's good about staying home? Similar thing with social media. If you're concerned about kids' social media habits that you're working with, ask them what's good about that. Like, what are they getting out of it? But also, honestly, ask them, you see anything troubling, and do you know what to do? Kind of asking what to do if you did, or if you were concerned about a friend. And most of the social media sites have. I should have provided links for this. Maybe I can add it to the presentation at the end, in the references. All the social media sites, even if you search them, just whatever the name is, and safety. So if Facebook safety, and Snapchat and safety. Recently had a colleague ask about that. So if you search the website and their safety, then you can kind of know where youth can go to report content if they don't feel comfortable talking to their parent. That's another thing too we can kind of talk about as well. Discuss the short-term versus the long-term nature of it. I think Snapchat is the one that's notorious for this. Just that impulsive mind of youth sometimes, that if you just put it out there, it's on Snapchat, and you can only see it for 7 seconds. Guess what? People can take a screenshot of it, and then it's all over the school before you know it. So again, it feels like in the moment, taking a picture, putting it on Facebook. Wow, that's a great moment. That was really funny. That was hysterical. That time that you were drinking a beer with your friends, and you took a picture of it, and somebody puts it up. But once it's up there, it's up there, and it's very difficult to take. And again, even if you take it down, there's no guarantee that somebody else hasn't taken a screenshot of it. We as adults know what's unsafe, but also engage with them about concerns that they have, like the research suggested. Ask questions and don't assume it is having a negative impact, I think, is the bottom line here. This is also another thing that this is very popular infographic, which I think is great to share with kids and have a discussion, and families too. I know one of the families that one of my colleagues worked with, they actually put this up in a public place in their living room, just because there was so much stuff around that, or even in their bedroom or something, to think, is it true? Can it hurt somebody? Is it illegal? I like the N, is it necessary? I think clinically that's a good question to ask. Like, is it necessary really for you to engage in all this? Again, that kind of like in a harsh kind of tone. But again, to think about that clinically, and is it kind? Would you want something like that said about you? Kind of that do unto others as golden rule kind of thing. The other tip that I give, that I would also empower youth to look at, is for more on the depression and suicidal side, is if they are feeling depressed and suicidal, and they're on social media, there's places that you can go. Facebook has a direct interface with crisis text line. So all a youth would have to do is follow these instructions. And this is just in the US though. I know they're expanding into Canada. I don't know if that's digital, but stay tuned. And other folks around the world might have some idea too in terms of crisis services. But what they can do though is they can go right to the crisis text line page on Facebook, say hello, and a crisis person will talk to them immediately if that's their preferred mode of conversation. Again, with safety planning with youth, you want to look at their natural supports too, their friends, family, things like that, but also to consider this as a resource too. Again, social media not all bad. There's a tool there for you if you need it. So shifting to working with parents, kind of the same philosophy of kind of empowering them with information, but also to kind of think about where kids are developmentally. And I think this is important to think about Erikson's developmental stages and stages of developmental conflict. Youth are typically in that identity versus role confusion, which, kind of trying to define who they are and what they mean in the world, and also that trying to assert more independence. So to think about social media as an issue, how would it be any different from any other issue? How is social media any different than dealing with this question of independence and asserting independence and defining who a person is? And again, it's a little bit of that was teased out in that research, but to think about, but to educate parents about that. So, you'll be kind of dealing with this challenge of them kind of going off on their own with their friends, doing potentially unhealthy things, or doing, doing great things too, doing very healthy, normal developmental things. So again, how is social media any different? So some of the things that I've read and done is encourage discussion and engagement around social media. You can do things very structured. You can talk about it like weekly. Can we sit and talk about your posts? Can we talk about timely news articles related to social media? Celebrity, we know sometimes celebrities get into it on social media. So to try to keep up on that stuff and try to, again, it doesn't have to be weekly. It can be unscheduled, but just kind of be mindful of those things. So there's a youth guide that I will link into the references that I thought was helpful. Just some basic safety tips, which I think will be helpful for you. And also, so there's a lot of apps on the market where parents can monitor social media use. And one of the ones that I thought was I've reviewed a couple of them, and one of the ones that I found most interesting is this bark.us, which I think is a really good tool, and I'll tell you why in a moment. I'll go back to that. Well, actually, never mind. I thought there was a slide in between this, but that there's actually some folks that did some research on these parental control apps, and I think they reviewed about 59 of them, and noted that most parental control apps were more about parents blocking and monitoring rather than co-creating what social media content is looked at. That's why I like this. Going back to bark.us is they kind of like co-create the parameters so that it's not looking in on every post, But just when going back to that research about youth identifying what to do when it is concerning. So if they're having a conversation with their friend who talks about wanting to die, the parent will be alerted. They won't be able to see anything else, but up front, before the app is started, you have a conversation with the youth, and because they would have to agree to open this up on their phone, so you can't lie about it and be sneaky about it. There has to be some sort of level of informed consent where youth has the app on the phone, the parent has the app on the phone. They've kind of talked about, okay, this is just going to give us an alert when there's concerning pictures or concerning language, and then we'll just talk about it. And again, what I like about this is that it talks about it more from that harm reductive kind of stance, that these parental control apps don't necessarily have to look at blocking or monitoring things, especially for the youth and older teens, that it's more of, okay, listen, I understand you're going to have friends on social media, and I understand you're going to use social media because that's where your friends are. But let's talk about kind of what what are the risks here, and let's have a conversation about it. And if there are risks, let's talk about them while they're happening. So the professional use of social media. So for social work and technology, there's a few great places you can go. It's not necessarily talking about social media, although social media does come up a lot when folks do talk. There's a Google Plus community called Social Work and Technology, which is a great place to hang out. The people post articles, research about social work and technology. On Twitter, the hashtag SocialWorkTech, SWTech, is a great place to hang out and retweet some stuff. And we try to, there's a lot of people, again, similar thing, having conversation about research and kind of what's happening in technology. And again, all social media naturally comes up. Another good resource is the Suicide Prevention on Social Media Twitter chat. The information is at spsmchat.com. And the hashtag ongoing. So if you haven't participated in a Twitter chat, it is a synchronous, which is a set period of time where people kind of gather around on a hashtag. In this case, it's Sunday evenings at 10 p.m. Eastern time. But again, and talk for an hour, and there's questions that are tweeted out, and people give answers on the hashtag. So if there's a question asked, does depression does social media cause depression? Somebody put question 1, and then you would put answer 1. And tweet out your answer using the hashtag SPSM. So those are some good ways to kind of keep the conversation going. I know that there's a lot of information presented here. Again, I tried to add, there's the youth thing, which I will definitely add into the references, which is not in the slides, but they will definitely be in the references, which I think is a good tool. For internet safety tips, which is a good conversation to have for youth. So I hope that you found this helpful and informative, just to kind of think about correlation and causation about social media and mood for youth, that we think critically about this and carefully, and that we, you know, as good social workers do, try to be person-centered, to think about the risk and protective factors, to empower people, youth and parents, to give them the information that they need, and to, again, just to kind of think about, okay, if what is harmful out there, but also, you know, educating people what is harmful about there, but also to talk about protective factors that may exist as well. Also, I hope you found the professional resources helpful. This is where you can find me, at Stuck on Social Work on Twitter and Instagram, and my blog is stuckonsocialwork.com. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the World Social Work Day, and I'll see you on social media. Thank you.